Bonus chapter. Ava Hart. Grace, I really regret it now. In the airport, Ava sat across from Grace with red-rimmed eyes. A small suitcase sat at Grace's feet. I shouldn't have taken Adrian from you. Now that I'm with him, I'm so unhappy. He barely pays attention to me. Every night in his sleep, he calls your name. Grace glanced at her coolly. And? What are you trying to say? Ever since learning you're getting married, Adrian comes home blind drunk every night. Ava appeared utterly heartbroken. Grace withdrew her gaze, looking into the distance. Don't you have so many admirers? Just pick another one. Her voice was flat. Ava's words seemed to have no effect on her whatsoever. Belated affection was cheaper than grass. Love, she would never expect it again. I love him too much. Grace looked at Ava, finding it somewhat unbelievable. So love could make not only her humble, but even someone like Ava who prided herself on being clear-headed could also sink into it. I need to board. I'm leaving. Ava wiped the corners of her eyes and stood up. Thinking of Grace's sympathetic look, Ava found it quite amusing. Her lovesick persona had probably taken deep root in Grace's heart. After passing security, Adrian was waiting for her. What took you so long? Ran into Grace. Ava linked arms with Adrian, smiling. If her life didn't have Grace in it, how much less fun would it be? Adrian's temple throbbed hard. He pretended not to hear what Ava said. Ava occasionally made him act in front of Grace. It started because she'd read a novel about chasing one's wife to the crematorium. She said the male lead was so cold to the female lead in the beginning, showing no sign of love. Later, when the female lead got together with someone else, the male lead suddenly realized he'd fallen in love with her. Though he'd married the second female lead, he discovered he no longer loved her. He loved the female lead, but the male lead still had a son and daughter with the second female lead. He gave the second female lead the best life and all his affection, but his heart only had the female lead. Ava believed the male lead didn't like the female lead at all. That day, because he'd worked a 24-hour shift and was exhausted, he hadn't responded to Ava's words promptly. And she'd subjected him to this torture, making him chase his wife to the crematorium. What wife was he supposed to chase? Hadn't she already let him win her back? But Ava was happy, and he couldn't refuse her, so he had to swallow his pride and act in front of Grace twice. Yet Ava seemed addicted, tormenting him endlessly. What's wrong? Afraid I'll make you act in front of Grace again? Ava laughed until she bent over. Adrian, who was usually afraid of nothing, acted like the sky was falling whenever she mentioned making him act in front of Grace. Adorable to death. All right, I won't make you go anymore. You're mine. If you keep going to Grace, I'll get jealous. Ava and Adrian boarded the plane together. Recently, she'd mentioned wanting to go scuba diving, so Adrian had cleared his schedule to accompany her abroad. This year marked their 7th wedding anniversary. There seemed to be no such thing as a 7-year itch between her and Adrian. Every day still felt like they were in the honeymoon phase. Ava actually didn't know herself when exactly she'd fallen in love with Adrian. Perhaps the seeds had been planted very early, but she hadn't dared admit it. The first person she'd monitored wasn't Wesley, but Adrian. Not because Adrian liked her controlling nature, but because she herself had a strong need for control. She'd never felt secure since childhood. With Adrian, she'd experienced being loved and cherished for the first time. How could she not be moved? But she'd deceived him into being with her. She'd always remembered this and warned herself not to develop feelings. She deliberately ignored all those moments when her heart fluttered. She told herself she was just acting. This performance would eventually come to an end someday. She'd set herself a deadline, 18 years old. She'd leave Adrian when she went to university. Before going abroad, Adrian had suddenly been in a car accident, a serious one. She'd stayed at the hospital for days and nights before he woke up. At that time, she'd been truly afraid Adrian would die. She had to admit, she'd really fallen in love with him. She'd almost decided not to leave. She wanted to stay with him, at least until he recovered before leaving. After this thought arose, she felt terrified, so being a lovesick fool could be inherited. She'd actually considered giving up her future for a man with whom she had no future. In the end, she still left. When Adrian chased her to the airport, her heart had softened. But she didn't dare indulge herself. Her future couldn't rest on a man, especially a man she'd deceived by stealing credit for saving his life. The most self-indulgent thing she'd done was take the proposal necklace Adrian had given her. She loved that necklace, not just because it was beautiful, but because the person who gave it to her was him. During the first 6 months abroad, her life consisted only of studying and dance practice. Things changed when Owen appeared. Initially, she hadn't intended to date, but Owen looked like her type and had the personality she liked. That inappropriate flutter was completely buried, and she began moving forward. All 3 boyfriends abroad were quite good, but she only maintained superficial affection. She didn't invest much emotionally until she met Wesley. She felt that flutter again. She gambled once and lost everything. What shocked her was everything Adrian had done for her. He'd been waiting for her to turn back all along. Someone as proud as him would bow his head for her. She thought people you stopped liking could never make your heart flutter again. But Adrian broke that rule. He loved her. Only her. She couldn't refuse such devotion. Her heart fluttered again. Adrian had long understood everything about her. The reasons she couldn't love him before had disappeared. She could be herself completely in front of him. She could allow herself to fall in love with him. Perhaps because her parents never loved her as a child, heaven had sent Adrian to her side to indulge her unconditionally without limits.